committee will come to order. Good afternoon, everyone, and we want to thank the administrator of the SBA, Maria Contreras-Sweet, for joining with us here this afternoon. I believe this is her first appearance this Congress in the 114th Congress. She's always a welcome visitor to us, and I want to particularly acknowledge and thank her for coming to my district a couple of weeks ago to Cincinnati, and we together had a number of events, toured in the area called Over the Rhine, a number of small businesses, as well as a credit union, and met with the chamber, did a town meeting, and a whole range of things. And she was obviously extremely knowledgeable, and I think made a wonderful impression on the people of Cincinnati, and we thank you for coming. I really do. Today, the committee will hear from the administrator about the President's fiscal year 2016 budget request. Two questions arise. First, are the resources sufficient to help small businesses grow the middle-class jobs that America needs? And second, are the resources allocated in an open and transparent manner? It's important to note that there are numerous other policies that are as critical for small businesses as those that will be raised today. Among those are the following. Small businesses deserve tax reform because the current code is so complex it makes their lives miserable. They need a regulatory regime that protects health and the environment without imposing outrageous costs. They need financial markets that are not so burdened by government oversight that access to capital to small businesses oftentimes is all but impossible. They need a simple system for exports and imports, one that does not require navigation of a maze-like bureaucracy. Now, turning to the SBA budget request, I believe that it's more than sufficient to meet the needs of America's entrepreneurs. Where I disagree with that request is in the priorities revealed in the request. For example, the SBA budget makes no mention of hiring additional key personnel who will help small businesses enter the federal contracting marketplace, a key pillar of the Small Business Act. The budget fails to allocate additional funds or explain how the agency will update its loan management accounting system that still utilizes 1960s computer technology. The budget request disturbingly fails to mention the absence of a chief information officer to oversee implementation of computer technology. The budget request makes no mention of resources needed to implement changes made to SBA's government contracting programs that have yet to be implemented. Instead, the SBA budget request is replete with its own initiatives and priorities. These include more funds for, among other things, entrepreneurial outreach programs that duplicate services, in many instances, provided by existing partners, a new computer system not requested by Congress, the Loan Information Network for access to credit that's intended to help small businesses find SBA lending partners, and executive direction. This request for more than $5 million in executive direction is particularly troubling. After more than 60 years of existence, executive direction from the SBA suddenly determines that a more than century-old statute, the Anti-Deficiency Act, applies to the closing of loans without any explanation. Executive direction from the agency entails waiting 30 years to update the application process for small business investment companies and then failing to publish that update in the Federal Register. Executive direction forces changes in cost accounting procedures for Small Business Development Center grantees, but provides no mechanism for challenging that action. If these are the types of decisions that will result from increased executive direction, it represents very questionable use of resources, in my opinion. The SBA must reconsider its priorities to minimize risk to taxpayers from a $100 billion loan portfolio while maximizing opportunities that ensure small businesses will continue to prosper and create needed middle-class jobs. That should include a top-down reexamination of the agency's procedures for creating policy. Ultimately, budgeting is about the bottom line for small businesses. For the SBA, the budget is about accountability. The budget request is the agency's defense of its priorities to taxpayers, current small business owners, entrepreneurs, and Congress. If this is the agency's defense, then it has not gotten off to that accountability right. And I would now yield to the ranking member, Ms. Velasquez, for her opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our economy continues exhibiting signs of strength, and small businesses are vital to this resurgence. Last year, companies with fewer than 500 workers expanded their payrolls by more than 2 million positions. That is roughly two-thirds of the 3 million total new hires. Clearly, as with previous economic recoveries, our nation's small businesses sector will be instrumental to our overall progress. Given the central role small firms and entrepreneurs play in creating new jobs and furthering growth, it is critical we work to ensure small businesses have the tools they need to succeed. The Small Business Administration plays a vital role in this regard. Access to capital is a perennial challenge for all small businesses. When private capital markets are insufficient for small companies seeking affordable loans, the SBA's initiatives help fill in the gaps. Last fiscal year, the agency supported nearly $19 billion in lending through its 7A program alone. Another $4 billion in lending was made available for capital-intensive projects through the agency's 504 initiative. In many instances, these were businesses that might struggle to secure financing elsewhere. It is vital that the SBA capital programs function smoothly and continue serving as a backstop to private capital markets. For small firms to succeed, they need more than capital. Technical know-how and guidance on everything from how to develop a business plan to export products to new markets can make the difference between whether a business thrives or goes under. To help meet those needs, the SBA has a range of entrepreneurial development initiatives. The agency's network of small business development centers and women's business development centers are spread throughout the country, providing valuable counseling services to startups and growing companies in every region. Beyond capital and technical assistance, the SBA also plays a vital role in helping small businesses and disadvantaged firms secure their fair share of federal contracts. Federal procurement efforts are responsible for $500 billion in economic activity. When small firms are awarded these type of projects, the benefits are twofold. Taxpayers receive quality goods and services at fair prices, while small companies are able to grow and in many cases add employees to their payroll. In that sense, the SBA's contracting programs are another element critical to our overall economic health. Given the myriad ways the Small Business Administration can be critical to the health of the small business sector, it is paramount that the agency's scarce resources be invested wisely. I look forward to hearing the administrator's views regarding the agency's priorities moving forward. With that, I thank the chairman again for holding this important hearing, and I want to thank the administrator for being here today. I yield the balance of my time.
Thank you very much. And we'll now introduce our sole witness here this afternoon, the administrator, who took her position in April of 2014. Before that, Maria Contreras-Sweet became the 24th administrator of the U.S. Small Business Administration and a member of President Obama's cabinet on April 7th, 2014. Prior to her arrival in Washington, Contreras-Sweet founded the first Latino-formed commercial bank in California in more than 35 years that focused on serving small and medium-sized businesses. We welcome you here again this afternoon, Madam Administrator, and we generally have a 5-minute rule, but we open it up to you to take such time as you might consume within reason, since there's just one witness. So thank you very much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you again for that generous introduction, Chairman Shabbat, and of course to Ranking Member Velasquez and the distinguished members of the committee. Thank you for this opportunity to testify about SBA's fiscal year 2016 budget. Chairman, congratulations. It's nice to see you come back to your committee. Your leadership and your record on bipartisanship and your commitment to the small businesses is a great tribute to our country. Thank you for that. I know there are many new faces on the committee, and I've already had some productive conversations with some of you, and I look forward to visiting with all of you and your districts in the months ahead. Entrepreneurs, I agree, Ms. Velasquez, are the backbone of our economy. They exude confidence. They exude courage and character. The programs in this budget have one thing in common. They seek to maximize opportunities for small business owners to create jobs and contribute their talents to our economy. That's the agency's mission, and that's why I'm here today. To accomplish this goal, we must continue our work to modernize the SBA so that we're accessible and relevant to the business community in the 21st century. To that end, I want to share with you an important achievement in this document before you. Our fiscal year 16 budget proposal contains a zero subsidy request for our core capital programs. Those would be the 7A, the 504, and the Small Business Investment Company, SBIC programs. We're all proud of this achievement and the fiscal responsibility that it represents. I'm an entrepreneur and a former community banker. I take my fiduciary responsibility seriously, and this budget represents my commitment to be a good steward of taxpayer dollars. For fiscal year 16, the SBA requests $860 million. In time of tight budgets, the SBA is doing more with less. SBA's zero subsidy achievement means that this proposed budget comes in 3% below our current budget year. The SBA is making good loans, and we project we will cover any loan losses through fees in fiscal year 16. We've achieved this despite waiving fees on small dollar loans. This fee relief helped us increase lending to minority-owned businesses by 23% last year. So we propose continuing it in fiscal year 16. I've completed 10 months on the job now, and thanks to the bipartisan support we've enjoyed from this committee, we've made some important progress together. Together, we met our 23% small business contracting goal for the first time in 8 years. We supported nearly $29 billion in lending last year, which created or sustained nearly 600,000 jobs. In the same period, our resource partners counseled 1.2 million entrepreneurs. Our SBIC funds increased their investments by 60% and provided $5.5 billion in patient capital to promising small firms. We expanded our Boots to Business program to train more than 15,000 service members at 165 military installations worldwide. In his State of the Union address, the President spoke about our economic recovery and job growth. I'll tell you something I know you already know. It's our small businesses that are leading this economic comeback. This budget requests an increase in our 7A lending authorization to meet the growing demand for SBA capital. Last year, Congress raised our 7A authorization level as we approached our lending cap, resulting in an all-time lending record of $19.2 billion in approvals. This year, we're asking for our highest authorization level yet of $21 billion. This budget also seeks full funding for our resource partners. This loan counseling provided by our small business development centers, our SCORE partners, the women business centers, and the veterans business outreach centers helps entrepreneurs across America start, grow, or reinvigorate their businesses. Partnering with them is one of the smartest investments we can make. This budget seeks a modest $950,000 increase for veterans outreach programs. We propose to offer SBA's Boot to Business Entrepreneurial Training Program to the National Guard, the Reserve component members, and additional military installations. We're asking to offer our Boots to Business Reboot program to veterans who've already transitioned out. We're proposing to continue the fee reductions on loans to veterans so we can serve these heroes as well as they've served us. We're also asking to expand SBA's microloan program level by 40% to increase the ability of microlenders to capitalize startups and provide technical assistance. We're convinced this expansion will fill a real need for more small dollar loans in the current commercial market. It'll help underserved and rural businesses turn a profit and create more jobs. This budget also seeks to improve our customer service. As a former community banker, I understand that the best way to make SBA more effective is to make our products and processes easier, quicker, and more cost-effective. This budget structure accomplishes this critical goal by migrating more of our services online, where more and more banking is taking place today. This April, we'll roll out our highly anticipated SBA 1 system. This is the automation of the entire 7A loan application. It's going to significantly cut the cost and time of our application process. We recently demonstrated this new service to our bankers, and the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive. Last year, I rolled out my modernization plan to fashion a 21st century SBA that stands for Smart, Bold, and Accessible. SMART means implementing systems that harness technology to deliver capital more effectively. Bold means opening new markets for small business owners both at home and abroad. And accessible means making our services available to all, including women, veterans, rural entrepreneurs, seniors, and the disadvantaged. As the ranking member indicated, more than 2 million of the 3 million jobs generated last year were created by small businesses. This budget would help us build on this momentum. It would give us the resources we need to perform our core mission and help more small businesses innovate, launch, hire, and grow. Again, many thanks to the members of this committee and to our very committed staff at the SBA across the country. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much for your testimony, Madam Administrator, and I'll recognize myself for 5 minutes. My first question, as you know, I had introduced legislation last Congress to help small businesses, the investment companies, SBICs. What is the SBA doing to make that application process more open, transparent, and less complex?
First of all, let me compliment you on sponsoring, or I should say, sort of being the patron of the Family of Funds program. We're really looking forward to having that tool. So I want to thank you right at the front end for that leadership. We think it's an important tool for job creation. The fact that we have a cap, and then if you have success with one fund and another, it prohibits you from going on to the next. So I just wanted to thank you for that foremost. But you know, on the SBICs, we've been at zero subsidy now for about 11 years. And I have to tell you that that program has seasoned executives that really vet these applications. And as a result, I think that we're having that kind of success. If you're hearing that the process is arduous, I'd be more interested in learning more about that, because it is, you know, the government obviously guaranteeing investments that are higher risk. And so we just wanted to make sure that we're doing our complete due diligence and maintaining the kind of confidence that you have in us.
Okay, thank you. I'll have my staff follow with your staff on the particulars, because I only have 5 minutes, so I don't want to take up all the time on that.
Thank you.
The SBA uses private sector partners to provide capital, as you know, to small businesses. These programs have specific missions. What procedures does the SBA have to ensure that small business investment companies, 7A lenders, certified development companies, and microloan intermediaries are complying with their statutory missions?
We do a couple of things, well, several things. But one of the things that I'm installing recently that I think you'll be pleased to know is in banking, as you generously mentioned, when I was back in Los Angeles, I founded a community business bank. And one of the things that we always enjoyed was having a sense of predictability. No one wants too much government regulation, but at least when you know what it is and you understand why it exists in terms of banking, for example, it's really important to be able to anticipate what's going to happen. So I felt that in terms of our regulation, for example, as you mentioned in CDCs, our regulation, or rather our oversight, I should say, was not as clear to people when we went in to examine it. There was some standard process through which we regulated or examined these partners. And so we're installing a new program that we call Paris, and it will do just that, sir. It'll make sure that we have a standard, anticipated, confident program that people can plan to, manage to, so that when we get there, we all talk in the same language.
Thank you. I had a meeting along with a couple other members of this committee and one who's on Ways and Means and wasn't a member of this committee, but with a number of small businesses from around the country. There were 8 exactly, and then some groups, and we discussed a number of issues. We met for about an hour. And one of the issues, not surprisingly, these were small businesses that are actually engaged in trade, international trade for the most part. I think 7 of the 8 were. And as you know, trade's critical to our economy. 96% of the consumers around this globe are located outside the boundaries of the United States, and unfortunately, only 1 to 2% of small businesses are engaged in international trade, and that's despite the internet and access that was unheard of years ago. One of the principal topics that they wanted to talk about, there were a number. They talked about Exim Bank and other things, but we talked about the importance of, first of all, TPA, Trade Promotion Authority, which used to be called Fast Track years ago, which no president has had in a while, but we've got to do that first, and then TPP is hopefully something that wouldn't be too far down the road from there, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and then TTIP with Europe. So my question for you, Madam Administrator, would be, I understand from others that the President has really stepped up his game in working on both sides of the aisle. He really only needs to work one side of the aisle. We're working the other side of the aisle. But it's going to take, this will truly have to be bipartisan to get this done. So could you comment on what the administration is thinking relative to moving TPA, TPP, TTIP?
I admire your interest and am grateful for your interest in the globalized economy, because I think whether we want to be a part of it or not, it's upon us. When you light up your website, you're already there. And so first, if I may, go to the specific and then go to the general. Let me just say that specifically at the SBA, when I mentioned in my opening address about the smart, bold, and the accessible, the bold really meant about was speaking to the market making. I do think that we have to help small businesses engage and protect them. In other words, not protectionist, but rather guide them through the international marketplace. And so to that extent, you know that we have USIACs that we deploy. We have products that help them. We have really strong products that have a 90% guarantee. Lamentably, it's just not a well-known product, and so that would, that's one place where we can work together. But then to your general point about the administration, clearly the President's made this a top priority of his. He understands that if we don't set some rules of engagement, China will set them for us. And so in that regard, I know the President has asked all of us at Cabinet to make this a top priority. And so I've been traveling across the country to try to engage and engage the conversation, have people give us feedback about what that could look like. I've been meeting directly with Mike Froman, my Cabinet colleague, about an SME chapter and what that should include. We're taking valid input across the country from people, and it's informing our process. But to the extent that we get TPA and TPP, we think that that'll set a great foundational framework for TTIP.
Thank you very much. My time's expired, but to the extent that I can, please let me urge you to do everything within your power to emphasize to the administration the importance of passing these trade pieces of legislation to small businesses across the country. And you and I, in our different capacities, I think, should do everything we can to do that. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I now recognize the gentlelady from New York, the ranking member of the committee, Ms. Velasquez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And welcome, Administrator Contreras-Sweet. One of the biggest challenges that we face in our country is the income inequality, the widening gap. For few, the economy is doing extremely well, but for a big majority, they're not. And so one of the programs that we have within the Small Business Administration is the PRIME program that serves to help the very low-income entrepreneurs. However, the program is slated for termination by your agency. Then you see how the SBA chooses to target the most wealthy business owners through programs like Emerging Leaders, which require almost $500,000 in annual revenues to gain entry. So I would like to ask you, of the new programs, pilot programs, new initiatives that you are proposing this year, which one of them is designed specifically for the very low-income entrepreneurs like Prime?
Yes. Let me just say that, first of all, you know how simpatico I am to your disposition about the underserved. It is something that I feel that I've been trying at least to emulate your work and to do it in my own little way in Los Angeles. In my bank that was stood up just to serve the underserved. So you know that that's where I come from in a place. When you are an immigrant, as I am, and you navigate, any assistance along the way is something that is very well received. So,
But it's not only immigrant. It's,
No, I know, no, I know.
very low income.
Yes.
It could be rural America or any.
Yes.
So
yeah, so I just wanted to say, I hope that you noticed that we did amp up the technical assistance component under the microloan assistance program to accommodate that. It's why, in large measure, we zeroed out fees on the loans under $150,000.
I understand. My question to you is, of the new programs and the new initiatives, if there is any that is being designed, tailored to help the very low income entrepreneurs. Because then
yes.
you have the emerging leaders and other programs. And you're going to tell me that maybe, the microloan program could fill that gap. But I could tell you that the SBDCs offer training as well as the emerging leaders does. So maybe if we're going to say that it's duplicative, well, in this case of emerging leaders that are doing extremely well, that might not need the type of technical assistance that low-income entrepreneurs need.
Right. The way and again, just only from my experience as a banker and then as a business person trying to start 3 businesses, I felt that there were 3 things that we needed to do to help this target community that you're identifying. And one is to provide them counseling. We launched a program also, and again, I'm reluctant to call it a program because I think it's a segmentation, but it's called My Brother's Keeper, and it speaks to focus on clearly the underserved. And so we're working with community colleges, we're working with churches, and we're going across the country. In fact, it's a program that we're launching very eminently, and again, I'm reluctant to use the word program, but this initiative, this effort very soon to target that very population. And then the second thing is that I've just been working with the credit unions of late to make sure that they make those $50,000 loans and under more available, and so we've entered into a partnership with them. Okay. And then third, the technology to make the system more efficient.
We have 2 new programs, Emerging Leaders and Scale Up America. Both of them provide training for very successful businesses. So I do have a concern, and I do have a problem with that picture, because here we are creating new pilot programs to assist businesses that really do not need, because if you are a small business that has revenue for $500,000, and it has been in existence for 3 years, you're already up and running. How can we fill that gap of those small businesses that are struggling? It goes to the core mission of what the Small Business Administration should be doing. So I just want to share with you that I will be fighting to make sure that the microloan, that the Prime program gets funded.
Just if this is any consolation, I hope that you also noticed that we amped up by $1 million for the Women Business Centers, which are wholly dedicated to underserved communities as well, in addition to My Brother's Keeper.
Okay. I would like to talk to you about the SBICs.
Gentle lady's
Yes.
time's expired. Would you like an additional minute or so?
Yes, please.
Okay, gentleman is
Thank you.
recognized for an additional minute.
Let me call your attention to the fact that the agency is claiming that you achieved the 23% goal, contracting goal, and I'm very happy about that. But then I cannot reconcile that with the Inspector General report that says that $1 billion of small business contracting actions were awarded to big firms, ineligible firms. So how do you reconcile that? And my question is, you have to have better mechanism and oversight to make sure that those contracting actions go to those who were intended to go in the first place, small businesses. And $1 billion going to big firms and then being counted as small firms is just not right.
The ranking member's time's expired, but you can answer the question.
Well, just let me say, I couldn't agree with her more, that when we have a program that is focused on small businesses, that is what we want to do. And so just to say that the SBA is committed, several programs put in place to make sure that, that this is not taking place. We have disbarred more people, 3 times more at the rate since we took office than prior 10 years. So I want you to know we are on it. We are adding more personnel. We're conducting more anomaly reports, and just every tool available to us is being deployed. Thank you, Mr.
Gentleman's time's expired. The gentleman from Nevada, Mr. Hardy, who's the chairman of the Subcommittee on Investigations, Oversight, and Regulations, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I'm a small business owner myself, or was, and I was out in the district this last week. And my district is District 4, which hosts Nellis Air Force Base. We probably have the largest veteran population in my district of any place in Nevada. With that being said, the SBA claims that the Veterans Business Opportunity Centers are underfunded. However, SBA makes no request for increase of funding for that program, but instead requests an increase of around $5 million for executive direction. If these centers are underfunded, then why not request executive direction allocation for those funds to the Veterans Business Opportunity?
Sir, I'll have to go back and check on the number, because we're asking full funding for all of our partners to continue the programs that we're doing, and we're asking for an amplification, an expansion on the Reboot program. And so we're asking for more funding for the Veterans program. So I'll have to review what number you're referring to, because we want to launch the Reboot program, which is for those who are already transitioned out. And so my understanding is that our request is an increase. I'll have to look to see.
According to the report, I looked at it, there were some questions about whether that was what was actually happening. So we can get with each other after.
I'd be delighted, sir. Thank you, of course.
The other thing is the Inspector General question. Why does the SBA require the Office of Inspector General to clear all the proposed final rules? And can you speak of how the role of the Inspector General works with SBA?
We have, I try to visit with the Inspector General on a monthly basis, and to have a proactive, I always think it's better to prevent than to detect. It's sort of my Japanese training when I was in corporate, the private sector. It's not about detection, it's about prevention. So to the extent that I can meet with the Inspector General in advance of promulgating something to get the feedback, then I think it helps us to be more efficient and not have to get caught up in messy quagmires at the end of the process.
Okay. If you could you explain to me how the SBA works with veterans on getting access and moving forward to access those funds? And the question I also have is, it expresses that the program is at about $350,000. Is that sufficient for small businesses? Because it seems like a pretty low number to me.
Oh, I thank you for allowing me the opportunity to clarify that point. What we're saying is that up to $350,000, we've zeroed out fees, but they can take loans up to $5 million. It's just the fee structure, so that we are waiving fees for veterans on loans up to $350,000. That's the point on that. Not that we're limiting to that size of loan. So I don't. That's the clarification on that score. I'm sorry, and your other question was?
It was about the process of how a veteran actually accesses utilizes their benefit to be able to get it part of the SBA.
So the program is really quite dynamic and interesting. It's part of the federal TAP program, the Transitioning Assistance Program. So we go into the installations globally around the world, and we introduce them first to a couple of hour video. And if they're interested in entrepreneurship, then we put them into an into a 2-day program where we actually have in-person training about entrepreneurship. And then if they're interested in that, then they go into the complete program that's a very extensive program where they actually develop a business plan so that when they come out, they're ready to start their business. So there's no languishing when they're out in the community and, trying to navigate through a labyrinth of what are they going to do with their lives after they've served us. So that's the counseling portion. And then they can go to a Veterans Business Outreach Center where they can get counseling for contracting opportunities where we have set-asides for veterans. And then, as I said, our fee structure for veterans is very favorable. So the entire longitudinal track for veterans, I think, is a strong one, and we're seeing enormous success from that. And the success rate of veterans who are starting businesses is outstanding. It's their discipline, their rigor. And so we're experiencing strong success there.
One last question. Through this process, is there specific things that the SBA looks at and how somebody's qualified for a certain business or get involved in it? Do they have to have any real world experience in that industry that they're trying to get into a small business? Or how do you qualify individuals? Is there an education factor that meets that criteria that you have to meet?
You know, we don't think it's our place to say to somebody that they're qualified for a business or not. And I'll give you examples since you've been asking me about veterans. I was in Denver and I met Sheila, and Sheila was a fine arts major as a captain in, I believe she was captain, lieutenant, excuse me. And anyway, the point, she was a fine arts major, but she was in this intelligence unit where they trained our Black Hawk helicopter pilots. And she always wanted to fix the training, but yet her family brought her home. Her daughter needed her at home. Long story short, she ended up hiring some engineers and came to the SBA, and so we provided her counseling to build her plan out, and then we guided her so that she could get certified and actually apply for an SBIR grant that she was able to take to commercialization. And now she has a multi-million-dollar business, and she's creating jobs and building a very important supply chain. So it's not to us to decide what they want to do or that they're major matches. If we feel that they have the passion and the wherewithal, they build a business plan, and we help them navigate through it. And if they're successful, more power to them.
The gentleman's time's expired. There are votes on the floor. We'll go through one more 5-minute round of questions here. Then we'll go over and vote. Now, there are 3 votes, and there's a motion to recommit, so we're probably pushes us up to around 4, I think, before we were able to come back for votes. So
Okay.
I think we do have other members that want to, on both sides, that want to ask questions. So if you're able to come back, I know that you had a 4 o'clock time, but if you're able to modify that and just let our staff know what the status is.
All right,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you.
The gentlelady from California, Ms. Hsu, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Okay. Administrator Contreras-Sweet, I'm struck by how much initiative the SBA has taken to address the critical problems that small businesses are facing in this nation. And I'd like you to tell us about how 3 of these initiatives work. I know these are pilot programs that have been approved by Congress via the appropriations bill. The first one I'd like you to tell us more about is the Boots to Business program. And I know that veterans returning home after serving our country face so many struggles, such as finding employment and have unavoidable difficulties of resuming life as a civilian. I once had a veteran working in my office who told me that when he deactivated from the military, all he received was a list of benefits that were recited to him, and yet he really needed employment alternatives. And yet the Boots to Business program is designed to help veterans before they get deactivated so they won't feel so lost. And then there's a whole other area, and that is the young entrepreneurs and the high-tech innovators who aren't the typical types to join the Chamber of Commerce, and oftentimes the last place they would look for is